friends, if you've been around the channel any length of time, you might know that I build little free libraries. This is an effort to have a source of free books in every neighborhood across the country. I've built maybe 7 or 8 of them. In fact, I'll leave a card to one of my more popular ones. It was the robot-themed Little Free Library, and you can find out more about Little Free Libraries at littlefreelibrary.org. But there's another kind of Little Free Library, and it's the Little Free Dog Library. And the idea there is you can take a stick or leave a stick. It's mostly humor, but a friend of mine wants one, and she wants it themed like a robot dog. So that's today's project.
We'll begin by taking an 8-inch steel sphere and cutting it in half.
Before I weld this together, I think I want to clean all this mill scale off. That way it will all rust uniformly.
So here I'm using a paint removing disc, which is really nothing but an industrial grade Scotch-Brite that goes on the angle grinder. It is really good at removing mill scale.
So here I've got some 1/2-inch steel bar. I've already put some bends on the end. These are going to be the legs. Now I'm going to bend the knees in, and then we'll cut it up. We'll cut that off, and this will be a leg. I'll shorten up the foot. So these hemispheres are going to be the tail end of the dog and the front end of the dog. And they're going to be connected with these steel rods. I figure about 10 of these ought to do. And you see I put a slight bend in there. I'll show you how I did that. I would use the roller for this, but I sold it. Anyway, just give it a little bit of bend, not much. Yeah. Now one thing you want to remember is that perfection is the enemy of good enough. And when it comes to a piece of art, which is what this is going to be actually, you don't want every single piece identical. Now, if you folks are familiar with the science fiction TV show Doctor Who, you'll know that his dog was called K9, and it was a robot dog. This dog is going to take some inspiration from K9.
So one of the unique features of K9 is his ears. They look kind of like radar antennas, and here we'll just sketch those out on a piece of sheet metal. Then we'll cut them out on the bandsaw and make the feed horns out of some steel rod.
They're going to have a piece of rod sticking out of the middle of the ear, and that needs to be rounded over. Now, here's the way I do that. You put this rod in the drill and then grind it. And that makes a very nicely rounded end. So here are my ears. I'm going to clamp those in the vise and whack them with a hammer to give them some curvature, and then weld my little feed horns into the middle. That is exactly what I was going for. But using the same method I used to round off those tips, I tapered this. This is going to be the tail.
And with all the prep work done for the dog itself, I need to get over onto the sign for it. And for that, using Fusion 360, we draw a rectangle and extrude it out to the same thickness as a piece of steel that we're going to use, and then put some text on it. Then we jump out of the design environment and into the manufacturing environment, and this is where you tell the machine how to do the work. Then I put my piece of steel into the Tormach, and about 9 letters in, the tip of my bit broke off because it was a steel bit with carbide inserts. Then I tried it again, and it broke again.
After 2 failed attempts with these steel bits that had carbide inserts, I got a solid carbide chamfer mill. Anyway, let's just try it.
And I guess that's the way you got to do it, is you got to use good tools. Otherwise, the cheap stuff breaks.
Now that don't look too bad. I'll tell you this, it looks good enough. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Well, here's all my metal prepped. It's time to weld it all together. And there's the sign for it.
And from here, I weld on a steel ball for the nose, a couple of steel balls for the eyes, and then I assemble the radar antenna ears and weld those on. After that, we assemble the body by connecting the two hemispheres with a bunch of steel rods, and it makes a giant basket. And it turned out pretty decent, I think. Then I attached the tail and the legs, and I made sure to position the legs in such a way that it looked like the dog was running. And finally, the head. And the head presented a little bit of a problem because when you try to put two spheres together, that doesn't always work. So I had to cut a relief hole in one of the hemispheres where the head was going to mount. But it worked out in the end.
Now the last step is going to be to weld this galvanized steel chain onto his collar. Then when I install it, the chain will be attached to the robot library. And before you warn me in the comments about welding on galvanized steel, all welding fumes are poisonous. You are not supposed to breathe any welding fumes, not just galvanized. So here it is, the robot-themed little dog library. Take a stick, leave a stick. All I need to do now is go install it, and if you want to see the result of that endeavor, find me on Instagram. My name there is wildman.tech. I'm happy to answer any questions in the doobly-doo below, so please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Click up here to see my last video. Click over here to see something of mine that YouTube thinks you'll like. And have a good one.